Well, today's video is Mark Stevens reminiscing about an epiphany that he had and his techniques that he developed and his successes that he's had. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
So those who have actually read Adventures of Legal Land may recognize that Brian Strong. This is where there was a big shift in how I would do things. So I want to talk today about how I did things. And again, this is not legal advice. I'm not telling anyone to do this. This is more of a retrospective of how I was able to get tickets and IRS complaints tossed out.
Well, he makes that claim a lot. But this is the only evidence that he has ever produced that he has ever been to court fighting a traffic ticket and using his magical BS. And as you can see here, he filed a couple of motions to dismiss. They were denied. You get down close to the bottom, filed another motion to dismiss, and the court says the court has reviewed the arguments made by defendant in his motion to dismiss. The court's earlier ruling was on the merits, on his arguments of the defendant's motion. That motion was denied and a hearing was set. Well, we don't have the results of the hearing. More than likely he lost, and that's why we don't have the results. But this is the only evidence that he'd ever been to court, and it's a failure. His motions were dismissed.
This is not a recommendation that anybody follow this. So we're just going to talk about the law and how I used it, and that's it. But it was a real wake-up call because what happened with Brian Strong is I was arrested for failure to produce ID. And there's a 9-0 Supreme Court case called Brown versus Texas, where almost word for word that it was illegal to arrest somebody simply to ascertain their identity, which is exactly what I got arrested for. After reading it verbatim, word for word, what Brian sneered at me was, "That's your interpretation." And I was kind of floored. I didn't know what to do with that. How do you argue that the judge is taking a literal word-for-word decision from the Supreme Court, 9-0?
Well, 9-0 would be relative to the case, the case, based on the fact circumstances of that case. And in that case, the police did not have reasonable suspicion. Now, we don't know the fact circumstances of Stevens' case, whether the cops had reasonable suspicion or not. But the judge does. And the judge is the one that said that Stevens was misinterpreting and therefore misapplying the Brown decision to his case. That's how it works, but that's a common mistake that internet pseudo-lawyers make. Let's continue.
But to get back to what I was talking about as far as the legal aspect of how I did things and why I did it, everything that I've done and why I've had success and why lots of other people have success, regardless of the critics who say I've never had any success whatsoever, just a quick search on the channel will dispel that myth.
Yeah. May I remind you of this?
The critics can't show where my logic is off. The only thing that they're able to do is to say that's just not the way it's done.
And thus, that's what makes your logic being off, is that it's not logical to try to disregard the way things are done just because you don't agree with them. That's illogical.
Well, that's okay. There's a fundamental disagreement there.
Are you stupid or something?
So if someone makes an allegation against me, I'm supposed to have a right to defend myself, and they are supposed to have a burden of proof. The one who makes the allegation bears the burden of proof.
Now, what's interesting is that little screenshot he just had was from a philosophy debate or an academic debate. It had nothing to do with law and the different levels of burden of proof in law. So that's where Stevens, he gets all his legal knowledge from philosophy websites.
What does it mean to impeach a witness? Now, typically in traffic and tax cases, what you have, especially when we're talking about traffic cases, you're talking about the testimony of a single individual cop, a police officer, and he's making legal conclusions.
Wrong.
No, he is not making legal conclusions. He is simply giving his opinion, his belief Based on his knowledge and training, it's not a legal conclusion. That's because you don't know what a legal conclusion is.
He saw me in Arizona. The laws apply. He thinks that because I don't have a driver's license or whatever, he believes that
Yeah, he believes. You're getting it.
he has a jurisdiction to write me a ticket. I'm actually going to bet that I'm going to bet here that you guys are probably more interested in the bunny.
Well, you take us down so many rabbit trails down the rabbit holes. Yeah, that was appropriate that you filmed that.
So it comes down to I would have to put the prosecution's witness on the stand. So when it comes time for cross-examination is the defense or opposing counsel's opportunity to question a witness. So all the prior statements that the witness has made up to that point, I am allowed to challenge so that I can impeach. Impeaching a witness just means they're not qualified to testify on certain issues or any issues, depends on how broad the ruling is, in that particular trial. So they'll let the police officer make all sorts of statements. They'll let the police officer testify that, literally, in these words, that I witnessed Marc Stevens violate Arizona law. They'll be able to testify to that. But when I question them on the facts to support that opinion.
Whoa, Mark, did you just say opinion? Not legal conclusion.
And they'll testify on cross. You saw me in Arizona. You determined that because I was physically in Arizona that you believe the laws apply to me. That's a legal conclusion he's making on the stand against me. The problem that the judges have is when I followed up this question and I asked for the facts, his prior statement, his prior legal conclusion was based. Now, I know there's going to be douchebags who are going to say it's not a legal conclusion.
Well, you must be one of those douchebags because you've called it what it is, an opinion and a belief.
He has to be competent to testify. That's what the rules, that's to be a competent witness.
Okay, now, Stevens has told his victims, this is what I do, and this is what you can expect because the judge is against you, and he's not going to allow this, and he's going to be on the side of the prosecutor. Well, I happen to have one of Stevens' victims in court doing exactly what Stevens says. And let's see what happens. Let's see if the judge reacts the way Stevens says he will, and let's see if Stevens is telling the truth.
Do you make legal determinations when you apply the law?
Objection, no.
I think the officer can answer that.
Could you repeat the question, please? Do you make legal determinations when you apply the law?
Yes.
You did hear that, didn't you? The judge said yes, that he could answer that.
Okay. Are you an expert in the interpretation and application of the Wisconsin Constitution and state statutes?
An expert? What's the relevancy, sir?
I'm inquiring about his capacity and competency to make legal determinations when he applies the law.
What does your question have to do with this speeding ticket?
He made a determination that the laws of the state of Wisconsin apply to me. And I'm going to be asking the deputy what facts and evidence does he have to back up his belief.
His belief.
That the laws of the state of Wisconsin apply to me. So that's why I'm asking about his competency in that matter, sir.
Okay, the officer can answer.
There you go. Okay, the officer can answer. The total opposite of what Stevens has told his victims, which is really everything he's told his victims, the truth is opposite of.
I've been trained to apply the laws. I would consider I don't have a title of expert.
So the cop says, I've been trained to apply the law. And that's what Stevens' big deal is, the applicability of the law. Well, it is the legislature who writes laws and says to whom they apply and how they're to be enforced. And so the cop is taught applicability of traffic laws. And here it is in Arizona, where Stevens lives. Here's the applicability to vehicles on highways. It's very simple. The provisions of this chapter and Chapter 5 of this title relating to the operation of vehicles refer exclusively to the operation of vehicles on highways, except when these exceptions aren't relevant here. So there is the cop's first-hand knowledge that he bases his opinion on that you have violated a law and that the laws apply to you, because he is told by the legislature he must follow what the legislature says to whom they apply. Same with the court. The court must follow this statute and apply the law to those who use their vehicles on the public's roads. There it is. It's very simple. Now let's continue and listen where Stevens is wrong even more.
Okay? Is it your presumption that the codes and statutes of the state of Wisconsin apply to me because I'm physically in
Irrelevant,
Wisconsin?
sir. I have already stated that they do apply.
And that, of course, is because the judge knows about that statute, too, about the applicability.
I've made it eminently clear to you that they apply and you are subject to them. Stop. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. The deputy has stated on the record that he stopped you. He had reasonable cause in his opinion
In his opinion.
to stop you. He issued you a traffic citation in person. All the things that you've asked for are repetitious.
So there you've heard what really happens in court. Everything Stevens says, it was bullshit and wrong. And the judge makes it clear that in the cop's testimony, he is not making legal conclusions. He is giving his opinion based on his knowledge and training. There you go.
No, not every case is won. But then again, only Jerry Spence can claim to win every single criminal case.
And I got to give a shout out to Stevens for mentioning my mentor, Jerry Spence. I owe a lot of my success and knowledge to this man who put me through some extensive training and internship. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned. I've got a real interesting next hearing coming up. Soft-Sit's going to be tried on some felonies, and he's going to try to use Stevens' bullshit. So hit the like button if you do, and subscribe if you will.